My next question. Why don't you think Konami use card subtypes and symbols anymore? Examples, continuous, counter, equip, etc. Do you think there's still room to innovate in this space, like a fusion subtype of spell, similar to ritual? I did always wonder that myself. Or a hand subtype for traps, which can be activated from the hand. Or set on the field for stronger effects, similar to Imperm. This is a fun one.
I've actually thought about this before, and I have a theory.
I have one too. I'm interested if we have the same theory, because we haven't talked about this.
That's true. We have not. I think this goes back to the late great Kazuki Takahashi.
Okay.
I think the symbols in this game were designed by him for Yu-Gi-Oh! For the cards, and at some point, like Konami and the powers that be said that's all there will be. This was his game. These were his symbols. We're not going to add any more to it.
Right.
I have nothing to base that off of, but that's just been my theory on it.
So what I think too, I think that's pretty serviceable. What I would add is that I think that the subtypes, like let's say Union, Spirit, Gemini, we've actually made videos about those, and you sometimes will notice that like Konami will make cards that function a lot like Spirits but aren't called Spirits. And we've seen a lot of cards that function like Unions but just they don't have the Union designation.
Yep.
And, even as a kid, I always wondered, like, why are there ritual spells but not fusion spells? Like, why isn't there, like, a symbol for a fusion spell? Like how there's a symbol for a ritual spell. And it's a good thought. I think that Konami finds those symbols and those subtypes to be limiting. Because once you make a symbol or a subtype and kind of have core mechanics that go with it, you are now, like, locked into designing like what those cards can and can't do mechanically. When Konami...
Oh, that's a good point.
I think when Konami makes cards these days, they make archetypes and stuff. Their archetypes do all kinds of stuff that sort of vaguely resembles old mechanics or whatever. This is going to sound like kind of a mean way of putting it, but Konami kind of likes to be able to cheat. They like for cards to be able to cheat mechanics, to kind of like squeak around restrictions, and they want the freedom to fully explore that. Mm-hmm. So, like I noticed in this question, we talk about, well, what if there was like a fusion subtype of spell similar to ritual? And I agree, that'd be really cool. But Konami kind of wants the freedom to have a quick play spell that fuses.
So that's actually exactly what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we got a quick play fusion spell well before we ever had the ability to use a spell speed to ritual summon, because, well, the problem was quick play had its own symbol and ritual had its own symbol, which inherently meant no ritual cards at the time could be at spell speed too, and until eventually they made quick play spells that let you ritual summon, but they're not ritual cards.
Yeah, and I think like that's the thing is, Konami kind of wants to have the freedom of being like, okay, we can have Secrets of Dark Magic, right?
That's what I was thinking.
It's a quick play fusion or ritual thing, and they want the freedom to kind of be able to like do that as much as they want. And there are plenty of other examples. This question's kind of like sudden for me, but I could think of a few others where I think that they just want to be able to, like, Infernoble Knights kind of can equip to stuff. But then also you've got like Snake Eyes that push monsters into the back row. But then also like you've got Millennium monsters that can be treated as like continuous spell and traps in the back row. And even though it's like two different ways of getting to the same thing, they kind of have different purposes for how they work. And so I think Konami knows that they would be maybe limiting themselves if they said that there's just a symbol that encompasses all of it. Similar with the traps too, like I do think it'd be neat if there was a symbol that could be put on a trap that just designates that like this trap can be activated from hand. Like the example you gave was like Infinite Impermanence, or maybe you think of like Evenly Matched or the Dominus cards. But the truth is, what Konami wants is getting into my second reason, which is related to the first, is that they want the freedom to balance it how they would like it to be balanced. So all those traps that can activate from your hand have different requirements to activate from your hand. You can only use Imperm from your hand if you control no other cards. You can only use evenly matched from your hand if you control no other cards with like the end of the battle phase. But then the Dominus cards don't actually have any of that. They just are like, you can use them from your hand no matter what. And they rather have like a restriction at the end of them where like, if you chose to use them from your hand, then you have this other restriction placed on you for the rest of the duel. And so if they were all just stuck under the like, you can activate this from your hand symbol, then it might actually like restrict the way that they can design them.
Right.
Because you have to give Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot of credit for like, it is for as much text as on these godforsaken cards, they are very, very finely worded so that, you know, like even Infinite Impermanence has like super subtle nuances to it that like a lot of people don't really catch. Like, you know, the fact that like if you can get certain cards like out of a column or whatever, like that it won't work certain ways. And like same with Evenly Matched, like if Evenly Matched leaves the field before it actually has its effect resolved, then you'll have like 0 cards in your field and you have to banish everything. All these little tiny things. And so I think like Konami doesn't want that. And then a similar example to the Ritual Quick Play and Fusion Quick Play thing is like Red Reboot, which is a counter trap from the hand.
Yep.
And so it wouldn't be able to use another symbol too. And like so there's like a whole thing with that. Like, I think what it comes down to is that Konami kind of just wants the freedom to make cards be able to like kind of like weasel around restrictions and be free and not be limited by a symbol.
And honestly, when they were designing those symbols, the look at the game was very myopic. I don't think they envisioned a type of spell past Ritual.
I agree.
I think when they came up with it all, like Ritual was supposed to be at its own type of spell to the same degree as Quick Play, Continuous. We're supposed to see like Rituals were just going to be a mainstay in the game, but the game has moved like quite far beyond Rituals to now where we ask like, well, why don't other things have a symbol? Because they were putting themselves into a box when they thought that Yu-Gi-Oh would
be one thing, and it just
they thought Yu-Gi-Oh was going to be like a 10-year game, if that.
Yeah, and Yu-Gi-Oh today, it's like, you know, it truly is just a different game, and it is a game that actually I have made this comparison before. I think Yu-Gi-Oh almost is like suffers from being called Yu-Gi-Oh because 2005 Yu-Gi-Oh and like 2025 Yu-Gi-Oh, 2 different games. They happen to share the same name, and it causes a lot of these uncomfortable conversations people have about like what Yu-Gi-Oh's become, what it ought to have been. When in reality, we're just talking about 2 different games.
Yeah.
And one is just kind of bound by a few of those early things you're describing. Those early like decisions that kind of had to be finalized, or we're stuck to them. So